It's Nepo versus Magnus, and after e4, d5, we have the Scandinavian, a smile and stare by Nepo there, because Scandinavian is not very common at the highest level, but Magnus likes to play it. After all, he's from a Scandinavian country. c6 played, and now the main move here is knight e5 for white, but Nepo takes a few seconds and puts his bishop on c4. But this allows Magnus now to actually come and pin the knight. And he might just do it, because after bishop g4 there is no bishop f7 business, because after king f7 knight e5 there is a check and then you pick up the queen. So that's the reason why he could do it. Bishop e3, e6 played, and now h3 by Nepo, pushing the bishop away. And I'm sure that he wants to even push it further away. He goes g4, bishop g6, queen e2, preparing long castle here. The time control is 5 minutes plus 3-second increment. Magnus brings his knight to d7. If you notice this position, you will realize that white has a lot of space and black is very solid. His bishop is outside the pawn chain here on g6. The other bishop can come to e7. You can short castle, you can long castle. It's flexible here. But white definitely has an edge out of the opening. Now bishop e7, a normal move here is bishop d3 coming back, or king b1, or you may want to get the bishop pair with knight h4. But look at Nepo there, within just a few seconds, he plays his knight to e5 and sacrifices a pawn. How is he sacrificing it? Well, you can just take it, and queen takes e5, and there you can see Magnus's expression saying, can I not win this pawn? But what Nepo wants to do is he wants to push his f pawn, then push the queen away, then go f5, open up the king here, kind of trap the bishop. And these are all the intricacies that Magnus has to calculate, and Magnus says, I have calculated them, I am going for it, because now you have to take queen takes e5, f4 played, pushing the knight out, pushing the queen away, queen moves back to c7. Now here is where Magnus has outcalculated Nepo, it feels, because Nepo's main idea would be f5. After takes, you will see that this has opened up, and a very important move here is bishop c5 to calculate, because if you now castle, I can just take on e7, rook e8 and bishop d6, and white is winning here completely. But the best move here and amazing move is king f8. And now I'm threatening to win your bishop, and if you take on e7 here, then I take with the queen moves away, I go fg4, and black is doing perfectly fine. So with this queen c7 move, Magnus has gone into the depths that his king is safe in the center and he can win that pawn. For Nepo now, it's a case of proving his compensation. How can he prove it? Because if f5 is not working, he has just lost a pawn for nothing. But what he could do is he could push his h-pawn down the board. That is possible, h4, but that could be met with h5. The other idea is to bring his rook to f1, which threatens f5 here. So Nepo, by the way, look at this idea, rook h f1. If you now play castles, then I can go f5, e takes f5, and bishop f4. Now the queen is attacked. It has no way of actually defending the bishop on e7, which is attacked by the queen. So that could be a very, very potent idea, rook h f1. Nepo has been thinking for more than a minute now, and he goes rook h f1, he sees it. Now for Magnus, he must figure out this, what to do against castle and f5, because that is winning for white. So Magnus can, by the way, figure out that if he figures out to play b5, an intermediate move, pushing the bishop, and then you could even castle here. Why? Because then if you go f5, ef, bishop f4, you have made a square for your queen on b7. That is genius, but Magnus has to figure that out, and he must do it with this limited time on the clock. Can he do it? That is the question. Well, 3 minutes 36 seconds for Magnus Carlsen. You can see him really calculating hard here, and he pushes it. Beautiful move found by Magnus Carlsen. This is the thing, when you play Magnus, you cannot take things for granted. He will test you, he will push you, he will not succumb to your tactics, intimidation tactics of sacrificing a pawn. He will make you prove your compensation. Now bishop b3, you can castle, but you can also push the knight away further with b4. And that is what Magnus is thinking. Of course, short castling is dangerous because f5 may not work, but still these pawns are right up the board and he can push h4, h5. How will that work? Now, Magnus taking his time. The clock situation is almost equal. Nepo has 2 minutes 58 seconds. Magnus down on time below Nepo now. But he goes b4. He pushes the knight away and the knight must move to a4. There is no better square. He goes knight a4 and now Magnus castles. He is going into the fight here, and for Nepo, of course, he realizes that after ef5, bishop f4, there is just queen b7, and the other point is if you take gf5, the bishop pops out from the other end. So that's the reason why f5 doesn't work, so he goes h4. Wow. Now, for Magnus Carlsen, h5 makes a lot of sense. The point is, g5, knight can move away, then the bishop can settle here, it's completely better. But there is a danger with f5 takes and bishop h7, and you don't like this position as a human because your bishop is just out of the game. So Magnus has to figure out what to do. h6 looks very scary because the pawns will simply move on. A good move here, by the way, could be bishop e4, but again, there are dangers there as well. So Nepo creating practical problems for the world champion, but Magnus finds it. He plays bishop e4, and now if Nepo can play knight c5, that is a cool move because it attacks the bishop, and if the bishop moves back, you have g5 and then take, and here's the nice move, bishop b6 takes queen e4, and we reach a position where there are opposite colored bishops and the pawns are rolling down, and this is Nepo's best chance. He must play knight c5. If he cannot find this, then Magnus is currently a pawn up. Also, his pieces are finding good squares. No, he goes g5. He plays g5, and Magnus is very quick to put his knight on d5, attacking this bishop over here. Can you go bishop b6 now? Well, it doesn't work because after ab6, queen e4, the problem is b5 attacks here. So Magnus, by the way, bishop d4 played, bishop f5, and now h5. Nepo very quick to attack. He should have gone bishop e5, but with h5 he's telling Magnus, you can take this pawn if you like. Well, how can you do it? Because after queen e3, Nepo's point is, I'm attacking your knight twice, you are defending it once, my threat is bishop e5 to attack your queen and the knight, and you are going to lose material, my friend. That is why he's playing it. And if you go back to d5 now, then basically in this position, white hopes to later on play h6 and play on the dark squares. So for now, Magnus has to decide whether taking this pawn on f4 is a good idea or not. And we know Magnus does not shy away from challenges. He takes it. Nepo instantly goes to e3, bishop g5. And look at the point of Magnus. If you played bishop e5, he would have taken and played knight g6 or knight d3 check, winning back the queen. So quickly king b1 was played, and Magnus once again finds an amazing move. Look at the point of this. If you play bishop e5, I go rook d1, and then a very important move there, which Magnus has to foresee, is that, look at Nepo, he's thinking, oh, has Magnus blundered? What is wrong with bishop e5? Am I not winning a piece there? I think Nepo is pretty sure he's winning it, and he goes bishop e5. Now Magnus, of course, must take here because that will reduce one of the attackers on the f4 pawn. But Magnus has seen one move deeper than Nepo here, and that's why he's such an amazing player. He takes on d1, and here is the move that you need to find. Otherwise, white is doing very well. He's going to pick up your knight. The move is knight d5. And will Magnus find it? He's touching the knight and he finds it. What a move. Nepo is taken aback because if you take here, he's going to take this. If you take on c7, he's going to take on e3. It's a beautiful move found by Magnus Carlsen from a distance, and he just rechecked his calculation and he went for it. For now, Magnus is now how many pawns up? He's 3 pawns up, and that is his brave calculations which has led him to that. Queen e7. Now Nepo can win 1 pawn here, but again Magnus's king is pretty safe, and a beautiful move, bringing in his final piece, threatening knight c3 check. If you move your queen away somewhere, let's say bishop queen e5, then there is f6 already winning the game. And if you play bishop h8, then I can already play f6 to trap the bishop, or knight c3, also wins a lot of material. So rook d8 is such a nice move by Magnus, creating this knight c3 check ideas. And Nepo plays h6, but what is he got against nc3? Not much, it seems. Both players down to 1 minute, but Magnus knows that he is winning now. He makes the final calculations. Whenever he's spinning a piece in his hand, generally he's calculating. Takes, rook takes d4, and after rook takes, notice the material, it's totally winning, and Nepo resigns there, and he says, I just sacrificed too many pieces. But look at where he places the king. Oh my god, his Nepo by mistake has placed the kings in a way where it shows win for white. In fact, it was a win for black, so the kings have to be kept on dark squares, not on light squares. And there you see Magnus comes in and says, well, that was a win for me. Beautiful game by the world champion.